just giving it a minute to reload, so that was a bit weird. Sorry for the interruption there, folks. So, if it didn't show... Oh my god, there's a whole bunch of people spamming. Where are my mods? Skunk Odor is hosting me. Skunk Odor is another member of Team Panda. I'm actually glad that I've gotten a chance to see him a little bit more often on Twitch, but not as often as I would like. Look at that healthy host. All right, let me say hello to everybody, then I'll explain what just happened here, because I have a feeling that we probably lost the event when the stream went down. So, Skunk Odor, Gigantic Cootie, Bloodshade, Kite260, of course we've seen you here before, Machuro, and Flaming Fury. I think that caught everybody. Apologies if I didn't see you. Welcome to the stream. Some of you I have already had the pleasure of meeting. Those of you who I haven't, I'm System Chalk. I'm a variety streamer on Team Panda. Friday nights we play this wonderful, nerdy little spreadsheet simulator called Crusader Kings 2. On Mondays we've been playing Shadowrun Hong Kong, but generally we try not to stick... Shadowrun Hong Kong is a little bit special because we've been sticking with that for a while. But... it's by no means not the only two games that we play, but every Friday night we play Crusader Kings 2, hence why you see this map of Western Europe and the year being 892. And you're going to hear me talk a lot about 16-year-old wives and killing family members. So, hope you guys had a great time in Skunk Odor. I will say to people on my side, if you haven't had a chance to see him, I think the one thing I've seen him play the most has been Rocket League, if I'm not mistaken. But that's definitely not the only thing that he streams. I think this is just what I have checked on my own, which means I should actually be checking this at the moment. What were you playing tonight, Skunk? In any case, if you're not following him already, as is usually the case, I tend to recommend a lot of Team Panda members. Now, there's certainly a benefit for me doing that because, of course, I hope that this is reciprocated. But in this case, this is somebody who I actually hang out in, and I will actually be participating in his chat, not as often as I would like, but as somebody who I actually spend my own voluntary time. There is no obligation to be watching people on Team Panda. So in this case here, I think it's, again, not necessarily always the kind of games that I will be playing, but what he streams well, and I think that's normally because the type of streamer that Team Panda attracts is a little bit more oriented towards personality. So it's not so much about the games that people play, so much as the added value that the personalities bring in there. And I think Skunk Odor is a fantastic example of the kinds of personalities that Team Panda brings in, along with Rebo, who suddenly stopped talking, but. Skunk stopped stalking you just because you stream a System Shock. Awesome. Skunked Up Friday, H1Z1, Rocket League, and CSGO. CSGO was the game I was thinking of as well. We actually had a Zombie Nerd in here a little bit earlier who said he wanted to see me stream CSGO. So all fantastic titles. Alright, so we just had somebody join in. He's 4K troops. I think they've got, what, was it 13? Oh, 20. So that 24... that's actually getting close to my own levies, so I want to be careful about how I navigate this now, especially because I've got another army. So what happened here is the Kingdom of Brittany is basically trying to declare its independence, just raised 5,000 troops. What I'm going to do first is wait for my levies to sort of all get together. Then I'll go and I'll crush this group. The drawback is it gives the Umayyads time to group up. Now, I have a few options ahead of me. I have a fairly substantial amount of wealth, so I could hire mercenaries if I need. I am also turning a profit currently, so I am going to be able to borrow money from Jewish moneylenders if I need to get a little bit of extra cash to pay for those mercenaries. The other thing that I can do is sort of wait for them to be in a bad position and take advantage of it. Ultimately, I want to be sieging out these provinces or counties. But there's nothing to panic about now. I just need to be careful that I don't go too crazy. And again, it would be ideal for me not to lose too many troops because I do have factions who are going to be will rise up if I lose too many of my soldiers. Chalk is always way too kind and oversells you. Well, it's because I want people to be disappointed when they stop by and then they just come back to this channel. No, I think Skunk Odor has the great trait of modesty, but I would definitely say is somebody who's very well worth your time. All right, my liege, my mission to Navarra has so far been a success. During the visit to Count Prince Reitzulf of the Holy Roman Empire, I seem to have managed to make him understand what a benevolent and peaceful ruler that you are, and he sends his regards. So this is exactly what we need. So here's a question for you. For those of you who have hung around from Skunk Odor's raid, by the way, and thank you to those of you who are, because I know this game is not for everybody. But I hope, especially if this is new to you, you get a chance to see a game that maybe doesn't get played that often on Twitch. So with that in mind, while we're checking out this game, even if you don't normally speak inside of chat. Oh, by the way, there was actually somebody who helped me out when it went down. Mr. Anderson, Maester Anderson. Welcome to the stream. If you're still hanging out, thank you very much for speaking up in there. As I always say, I definitely appreciate the lurkers. I don't shout them out in chat anymore because I noticed I scared people off when I did that. But I did want to take a second to say thank you, welcome to the stream, and I really appreciate you letting me know that there was the problem with the disconnect. So even if you're lurking, don't I won't expect you to keep talking. But if you are unfamiliar with this game, if this game is new to you, feel free to speak up. I'm very happy to go over the basics with everybody to explain what the devil is going on, because I'm perfectly happy to talk about history or DLC or any of this other nonsense that I talk about on my stream. But if everybody's generally familiar with the gist of this game, I'm happy to just talk about the strategy that I'm employing and the general goals that I have as well. So. All right, my kinswoman Eloise makes sure everyone gets exactly the same amount of whatever sweets the cook gives the children. Just as a really good trait, although it's in my daughter, so I don't really, or well, kinswoman, not daughter, but not somebody who's going to inherit the kingdom, so I don't need to worry about it too much. What the devil? What happened, Bonnie? All right, so the Umayyads have already begun a siege. Now, this isn't the worst thing that could happen, because when you siege a county, if you successfully take it, you actually have to give up troops to hold it. All right, patience is a virtue, but sometimes it gets on my nerves. My kinswoman Eloise never loses her temper and is always waiting patiently for a chance to retaliate. This is the kid who makes everybody look super bad. So, good, I cannot abide recklessness. Gain 5 prestige. And she gains the trait Patient. Hope everyone enjoys the cast. Skunk Odor cannot stay any longer. Must be about bright and early, unfortunately. Oops. I suspect that probably came through. This is a fairly nice microphone. Right, have a great sleep, Skunk Odor. Thank you very much for that host. It looks like a good, solid majority of the people did stay, which is always appreciated. And I, of course, recognize you, the good people of Skunk Odor's channel, for that. So, thank you. Sleep isn't happening, Freighter 5? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That isn't because I dropped the can, is it? Alright, so I'm going to take these 12,000 troops and use them to take care of the uprising. That was just a can being knocked over. All right, we've got more going on. So this mission that he keeps talking about, basically I've sent somebody, this is for those who are new, obviously. I'm currently trying to change the laws in my realm, and the people who are stakeholders in the realm have a say about that. So what I'm doing here is I'm sending my chancellor, who's kind of my diplomatic advisor, to go and change the opinion of some of my subjects. Now, because I've got vassal levies raised, they're going to be generally unhappy with me because of my, basically just because I'm using up their troops for my own ends. But the idea here is that over time, with enough people kind of working on my behalf, with enough kind of cajoling along these diplomatic channels, I'm going to have the votes that I need to change the laws to what I want. It's because you're an insomniac. You're not a lone trader. Okay, and so you swear this isn't a shameless plug or anything. Do you have any advice for a new streamer? Yeah, so as Finding Bonnie said, I definitely advocate plugging. So, I mean, I'll say it right. I've been doing this a little bit more often. I don't want to turn it into I don't want it to turn into a practice that's so meaningless. But yeah, if you do stream, obviously we've had Skunk Odor, we've had Kite260, we've had Weebro. We've got a lot of people who are established streamers who are on the team that I'm already on. But if you do have a stream on your own, feel free, drop your link into chat right now. Again, as I said, I am very, very lucky in having an audience which is extremely supportive and very patient with new streamers. So I think you guys seem to enjoy watching new material, especially new material that's maybe a little bit off the beaten track, like my own stream. And I think because you guys have kind of gotten to know each other inside of chat as well, it's a particularly good time to be able to check out some of these. You know, they've built a reputation based on the way that they go in here. So, anyways, Freighter5. So, in terms of advice for new streamers, I mean, I really can't claim that title anymore because we're coming on to about we're not quite at a year yet, but we're getting there. So, in some senses, I don't, I'm not exactly qualified to be the one to be giving advice, but that's a cop out, right? You'd feel weird dropping a link during a... Okay, well, if any of you want to check out Freighter5's stream, click on his name, and that'll give you the link to his channel, because apparently he's too bashful. I honestly don't mind Freighter5. Even if you said right now, I'm streaming, come check me out, because I'm better than this jackass. I mean, if you're doing a better stream, people should be entertained, right? I actually had one case where a Destiny streamer came in and said Crusader Kings 2 was boring. He didn't actually say to check out his stream, but I basically told everybody, it's like, well, if you want, you can go click on his, and if he's more fun than I am, go, stay there. Nobody left, but I am definitely very very lenient on the whole linking thing. But yeah, anyways, so I've kicked, I've kind of kicked around the question long enough. So, the first bit of advice that I got, and I think this is kind of translated into something of a hallmark of this stream, is to always keep talking. Now, I take this to ridiculous extremes. I don't shut up, but then that's also a virtue of my casting style, right? I don't have a cam, so any moment that I spend not talking, and I mean, you can obviously have like appropriate silences while you're thinking through something, or it doesn't have to be just this wall of talk, but to be able to still have something to say for the duration of the cast is a very good trait to have. So one thing I would say, I do have a blog. I don't think I put a link on it down below, but if you do, I think it's systemchalk.wordpress.com. I don't know. I'll find it at the end of the cast and I'll paste it in there. Or I mean, if you have to go to sleep, I'll make sure you get the link one way or another when I find it. But I did actually put up a couple of posts about starting a new stream, or well, just general things that I'm thinking about for streaming. But the one thing I would say is that in addition to just the dialogue thing, so Jesse Quill was the one who said, always have something to talk about, even if it's not about the game. Talk about what happened during that day. Interact with people. The big thing is that I'm kind of at a point now where you can never have a better, more soothing voice than chat. That's definitely not true. Yes, Finding Bonnie is also... Yeah, so there we go. See, Finding Bonnie knows how to do this. She is a YouTuber. I actually just sent her a big, super long message, which I hope was useful. I'll find out when I read my YouTube messages. Maybe it's just going to be a big string of swear words from her about my advice. But she's a YouTuber. But I mean, again, that doesn't mean that it's not worth... doesn't mean it's not worth watching. But anyways, you have... you play this game too, you're not as good, but you play better music. I mean, this is the built-in This is the built-in music. So if you like the built-in music, then you're good. If you don't like the somewhat repetitive soundtrack, then yeah, Raider 5 will probably give you what you need. All right. Okay. So in terms of advice, so I'm gonna modify what Jesse Quill said to me. I think it's important to have something to say, and you could say, the voice of your stream or something like that. But I can remember a Team Panda application which had applied around the time that I did. By the way, guys, there's going to be a bit of a break in gameplay at the moment because I sort of need to spend a minute to address this question from Freighter 5. I'm sorry if that's not your thing, but now this guy talked a lot, but he never really said anything, and it's like. So a good example of this would be, I'm at a point now, I can remember when I was streaming to an empty room and still talking. Now I'm really lucky in having you guys to give me stuff to bounce off of. So, I always say this, but it's true. You guys are as much a part of this stream as I am, right? The fact that you are giving something for either people to interact with or me to interact with means that you're actively creating content for this stream. Even if I sort of say I don't actually agree, you could just say something that offends me. It hasn't happened yet, but let's say it did. That's still something that I'm going to be riffing off of. I would hope, of course, that it's positive, but, I don't always get to pick that. So I can see Finding Body took the suggestion to heart. So the big thing is that there would be people talking to him in his stream, and it would also be like he would just be like, yeah, okay, and like that's it. Now that to me is not responding to chat. That is not interaction. That is acknowledging that something has been said. But that's still a very one-way style of communication. And like I can remember specifically, so he seemed to be having some problems with his green screen. And I mean, I have a little bit of a background in film. I used to work as a camera assistant before I went to school. So I told him, it's like, you could probably fix this issue that you're having by, I think like I just told him, it's like, even if you get like a lamp and just turn it on to give a little more definition, you'd probably get over that green screen problem. Like, basically what was happening was his green screen was so dark, it was keying out his shirt because it was basically a black screen at that point. And yeah, again, same deal. It's like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then he just goes back. So it's like, he was speaking, but he wasn't saying anything. Now again, whether you want to talk about your day at work, whether you want to talk about the game, I generally like to talk about the strategy. So, with each successive generation of the Carlings, we've been talking about what our goal is. In this case, this has been entirely about trying to get these succession laws in place with a guy who's fairly advanced in age. And then, of course, dealing with all of these sort of supplemental things like uprisings and whatnot. So these are all... these are all things that can fuel your dialogue. But I think that's the reason why people will be showing up, right? Is you're going to bring something unique. This is the part where you are bringing added value. This is more than just watching in my case, a disembodied voice play a game, and with somebody who has a cam, a picture of somebody staring at a monitor while, they may or may not be playing a game. Maybe it's just the AI, and they're reacting to it. Like, personality is the part where it comes through, and I'm not going to say what you need to talk about, because that in the end is about who you are as a person and what your values and what you consider to be important on your stream and in the game. But that gives you a bit of an example. Now, the reason why I brought up that specific applicant, I won't mention his name because I'm not saying nice things, but I felt very bad because we had the review of the application. And the point that I had raised was brought up, which is kind of like, you're talking a lot, but you're saying nothing. Like, there's a little bit more to audience interactivity than just, making noises when you see something come up in chat. Hey, Gigantic Cootie, I'm giving you attention. The thing that drove me crazy was I went back to that stream because I always like seeing, like, based on the feedback that we give, there's some people who apply and they never apply again. And that's definitely not what Team Panda wants to do. The most common thing that we say on Team Panda is actually, we don't actually know you that well. This is a little bit more about building communities. And so in that situation, just hang out with us a little bit more, say hi, let us get to know you, and we can, check this out again, when you apply in a month or something like that. Very few people actually apply a second time, which I think is a really big shame. But in the case of this guy, so it's like, okay, so what is the advice that we've given? Have they become a better streamer from us giving advice? Or are we basically just setting people up for a bunch of disappointments and they're not actually accomplishing anything? And I was embarrassed for this guy because it went from like this very sort of static speaking and saying nothing to just this ridiculously over the top, like they were playing Borderlands 2, they sucked at Borderlands 2, but like they just went, like they turned the energy up to 11 and they were still saying nothing, but they were like bouncing up and down in their chair and they're like, oh yeah, I own that guy. It was like, oh my God, this is not what we're talking about when we're saying generate content. So, whether you want to talk about the strategies you're employing in the game, if you're a history buff and you want to talk about, who Widukind was or something like that, I always love learning stuff. This is one of the reasons I like Crusader Kings 2. But that's one of the big ones, which is Twitch is an interactive medium. They're really, they've tried in TV to do interactive stuff before, but it is unique here to have that direct interface between the audience and the streamer. And so gaming is the thing that we share together. This is the thing, we're all on this gaming website because we share a love of games, at least just watching games, because I definitely have viewers who do not play games themselves, but they enjoy watching. So in this case, this is the setting, this is the context. We have at least one point in common with each other on here. But in the end, what makes Twitch Twitch and what makes this a really interesting and unique broadcast medium is precisely that direct connection between the streamer and the audience. And in the end, people are always the most interesting. To be able to read people inside, when I get a chance to talk to you guys inside of chat, and when when I give out a little bit of my personality, or when I get to see some of your own, like that's the real value to me here. People are always going to be the most interesting part of Twitch or anything in life, really. And so in the end, the more that you can bring that out, I think the better of a time that you're going to have. Because like in the end, if you want to be a big streamer, I'm not the person to give advice. I would be a big streamer if I knew how to do that. But if you're looking for getting things started, I think the best test of a new caster is how they deal with the empty room problem. Are you able to can you make a stream worth hanging out in when there's nobody there to watch it? Because in the end, there's always going to be somebody to watch your content, but you never know when they're going to come in. And so if I go into a channel which was previously empty and the guy's never been talking, I have no idea if they're interesting or not. But the person who is talking, even if it's an empty channel, I get a bit of an idea about what they're about. And I can tell you for sure that there are people who I have immediately known upon walking into their channel that this was something that I wanted to see. Not even necessarily playing a game that I really enjoyed, but I sometimes just kind of, it's almost like hitting the I feel lucky button on Google. You can definitely tell the people who are communicating personality or something more than just the game that they're playing, and those who aren't. So to me, that's the big one, is like, ultimately, what is your voice? What is the purpose for streaming? And it could be you like sharing games with people. It could be that you like the history. It could be that you don't think there are any good Crusader Kings 2 streams out there and you want to show everybody how it's done. These are all fantastic reasons to stream. And in the end, they're going to be informing the sorts of things that you talk about. And yeah, I mean, honestly, Freighter 5, talk about politics. Somebody disagrees with you, that's fine. They can either go to another channel or they can voice that disagreement and you can riff off of that, right? I can tell you right now, I know for certain the diversity of the people who are in this channel, I am not going to make everybody happy with my political views. Political views. But I think we could still have a very interesting conversation in chat over the different values of those views. Especially because in my end, my interest is definitely towards my academic studies, which are along economics, which tend to be neutral as far as politics. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have political convictions. Quite the opposite. I do have them. But to be able to, I was going to say there is a difference between my ability to analyze a given issue and then to put what I would consider to be my ideals. So there's the positive assessment, which is sort of me running a regression or taking a look at some statistics and saying, this is how the world is right now. And then there's my normative beliefs, which is saying, this is the way the world should be, or this is right, or this is the proper way to do it. There is a division between those two. And I could have a positive conversation, I could have a normative conversation, I could have both. But that's all stuff for me to, to give and take in terms of an exchange. Never hit that button before. What button? Now blackmail this game. All right. Much too strong. Yeah, are you going to stream CK2 and kick the crap out of this stream? Down with Merchant Republics. How's it going, Much Too Strong? Honestly, I want to watch a good CK2 stream when I'm not streaming. All right, Duke Saxo of Upper Lorraine. And yeah, sorry, Freighter5. I know I probably should give you some more on that. The other thing I'll say, and this is going to be funny coming from me, consistency does count. I wish I could stream more consistently. But you will definitely see a larger increase in terms of your numbers if you stream consistently. Finding Bonnie's going to be doing a short stream tomorrow afternoon sometime if anybody wants to come hang out with you. I think there should be some people inside a chat. I may not be following myself because I have a lot of homework to do, but I'll do my best to try and stop by. All right, sorry. So Duke Saxo of Upper Lorraine has given me a... oh, man, everybody's been reading on here. So has been giving me bizarre and repulsive evidence concerning Duke Hugo the Fourth's Burgundy's sexual preferences. How should I use this juicy information? Well, I don't believe he's a homosexual. He is a master seducer. He's wroth. He's proud. He's zealous. He's got the lover's pox. He's an adulterer. He's got a maidservant lover. So I think this guy is just into some very kinky religious stuff rather than him being homosexual. In this case, I will actually keep the information to myself, and that's because I need to get people on side for my laws. Oh, the I feel lucky button. Gotcha. Sorry, Kai, I didn't appreciate the delay was so long, so... Whoa! Oh, that's just the siege. So, in this case, they've got 8,000 troops here, so I wanted to make sure that I had all my troops consolidated, which they are now. I just want to make sure I'm not going to starve them to death. So they got 37, 22... This is going to be a problem, actually. So I'll actually cut this in half. I'll send this group ahead. So basically what I'm doing here is I'm just getting them through the narrow part where I would wind up starving my troops. The attrition can be pretty gross if you don't manage that well. And of course we've got dangerous factions. So in this case I'm going to move my spy master. You just keep info to yourself. Religious kinks hype. Oh yeah, see, we've already got the starvation, so I already screwed that up, so. In this case, we'll let the one stack move along, and then we'll let these guys catch up. So again, it's a setback. I lose money by having them siege out, but they are going to be losing troops, and I do outnumber them. So it's a small-term loss, and then basically once we crush these guys, we're going to run rampant all over Castile, so it's not as big of an issue as it seems. Now, Barcelona can support my troop numbers, so I'm going to move them in here, and then we're going to clobber the Umayyads. It's worth remembering that they do have allies, so they do actually have a larger force than this seems like. But fortunately, it's not going to matter because we sort of have enough to take on. We have enough to take on the combined force, and the fact that they've split up means that we'll do quite well for ourselves. Of course, we have to chase them all over Hell's Half Acre to get there, so. Speaking very briefly on politics and you being a fellow Canadian, be sure to check your voter card and make sure it actually goes to the right place. Well, Freighter 5 may not actually vote this election, as bad as that sounds. But yes, I actually usually have a fairly good idea. I did work for a political party in the last election, so generally I'm pretty good at knowing the locations. I actually normally check the Elections Canada website. But yeah, I know I've been reading on usually reading on the CBC, but I know there's been a little bit of strangeness happening along those lines. Okay, this is a bit of a worry. So this is the bigger Umayyad army coming to cause me problems. So in this case, we'll just double back a little bit. It's worth taking a look at in terms of how they are in terms of their overall strength. So this is 11,000 troops. The Umayyads can field 13,000. And their allies can field 4,000. So this is a fairly representative force. The big trick is to finding a way that I can combine my two big stacks and taking these guys on. Yes, Chalk is Canadian. This has been yeah. Hundreds to wow, I didn't know it was that many. Jesus. Already voted election offices are open. Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that we used to do when I was, when I was working on the campaign. I've worked on more than one campaign, but I remember the last one, we were actually putting a lot of effort behind securing the early ballots. So, I mean, honestly, I really don't like all of my options right now, so I'm almost certainly not going to do an early voting. I'll probably cast some kind of a ballot, and if I'm still feeling really depressed about my options, I'll just write something stupid like Putin. And yeah, no lineup is one of the big reasons. Although honestly, any time that I've showed up to my polling place, it's usually been a pretty thin lineup, if any. So, planning on doing so on election day for the sense of community. Man, I hate other people. Yeah. Much too strong. The reason why I wouldn't vote would be I don't. So keep in mind, I was a card-carrying member of one of the parties in Canada, and the problem is that issues that I consider quite important are either. So there's one party I certainly will not vote for under any circumstances this election. The other two actually support policies I do not think are right. And I don't feel a negative endorsement of the rival party is sufficient for me to vote for one of these other two because they specifically support policies that I would not want to see enacted. And it sucks because I know this is a fairly major election and people feel that there's a lot at stake. But yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't feel the current options are at all representative of the direction that I want to see the country take. And there are at least 2 or 3 major issues on all of the parties on which I have some fundamental disagreements with. In previous elections, they only counted the early votes if it was a close... That's ridiculous. Okay, pick the lesser of two evils. But yeah, but I mean, in that case, like the lesser of the two evils has not done anything to earn my endorsement, right? I consider that to be a difference between me endorsing a party and saying, I want to elect you to office, and just like, well, you're the least crappy of my options. So, I mean, in the end, I'm 1 vote, so I'm not actually going to make that big of a difference. But I know everybody hates it when you say that, so... With your strong devotion to the Catholic faith, you have spent countless hours reading the Bible and thinking about the meaning and origin of the sacred words therein. There are some things that don't quite correspond with what the priests are saying in the sermons, however. I have no right to question them. Kind of have to vote against someone this time, although you would love to vote who you actually want to be PM. By the way, guys, I am keeping my cards to my chest so far as who I am voting for, but if you want, you can feel free to say who you are voting for in the election. I do not mind. I'd rather not elect others as... No, but okay, so let me give you an example. A lot of people really like proportional representation. I'm not that big of a fan of it. I actually think first past the post is not necessarily the best system, but I don't feel that it is bad enough that we need to change it. So two of the parties right now are campaigning on, if we get elected, we will institute electoral reform. Okay, so that would be the NDP and the Liberals. Now, another issue that I consider to be fundamental is the census, especially because I'm an economics major. I plan on doing research in economics. The census is a little bit important to my work. We need to have the long-form census back. There's no argument in the world saying that the long-form census ever should have been removed. Now, the NDPs or the Liberals will bring that back. So, you know, I could try and balance the two off, but they have necessarily tied these two important considerations for me, one into the other. And then, of course, you know, it's a negative vote for the Conservatives because they're the ones who remove the long-form census, and I know the long-form census won't be restored if a Conservative government is elected again. So far as their stances on Syria, again, the Liberals and the NDP are more or less the same on it. There's some small differences in terms of their foreign policy, but I generally don't think they're right on that particular piece of foreign policy. I don't think the Conservatives are right on Syria either. I think they've got a very inelegant solution to it. But so in that case, it's like, what do I say? Well, the Conservatives are doing something stupid, but at least they're doing something, so I'll support them. Or do I say, well, you know, the Liberals and the NDP seem to believe that we should have a strong Canadian forces that we never actually apply towards anything, even as something as clear-cut as Syria. Well, I know a lot of people say about ambiguities, but in that case, like I'd say, you know, if not ISIS, who is sort of the big idea here. And I'm not talking about like full-scale troop deployment, but you know, at this point, neither of those candidates have given me any kind of an indication in terms of when they think when or what the appropriate use of Canadian forces are. So it seems to me to be a foreign policy that will do everything it can to avoid actually making a tough decision. So again, it's like, what is the lesser of the evils here? Is it the one who, I mean, you know, the curse of being a poli-sci major is that you're fully aware of how the system works. I read a lot of poli-sci journals, actually. I just wish we have single transferable votes. That's the third year of university. Electoral reform can mean so many things. You want to vote NDP to beat the Conservatives in this riding, you need to vote Liberal. Yeah. And if there were a zombie apocalypse, you would leave me outside the gates. That's fine. I guess that would make me a libertarian. I just have to survive on my... survive on my own merits. Eloise has developed a habit for wild parties, so at age 12 she's becoming lustful and charitable. Oh my god. Eloise seems to constantly spend time with the opposite sex. She has gained the lustful trait. Wow. All right. We do not have a lot of options here as far as marriage material. He could hang out. We need economists. The hell you need economists in the dark future. You need people who can actually do stuff. But I'll gladly stay in the fortress anyway. Age is absolutely the thing, not the thing I should be using. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to move out. Like, serious happening, intervene, don't intervene, doesn't really matter what candidate. Well... I don't really agree with that. Can Canada single-handedly turn the tide? No. There is a point, okay, this is going to sound extremely Republican of me, but here's an example of what I'm talking about. So you can remember when everybody was talking about the intervention in Iraq, right? Now, there's most people are going to say this was not a good idea. There was a debacle. Certainly, the invasion was not well implemented. But there was something really interesting about the way that Canadians talked about that one, which is to say, we need the UN support. All of it's contingent on UN support. And that kind of seems to be missing the point. So obviously you want proper institutions, and you want, you generally want a rule of law. You'd like a consensus over this thing. But either the invasion is necessary, or it is morally justified, or any one of these things that any one of these justifications, or it isn't. And you say, okay, we are participating because it is the right thing to do, or we are not participating because it is it's not the right thing to do. And it seems to me the endorsement of the UN doesn't necessarily change that. So, as much as you may want to fault Bush or Blair for undergoing it, in this case, it was an act of principle, maybe is probably the wrong term for it, but I guess that's kind of the closest to what I'm saying. So similar with Syria, right? Either Canada wants to see, again, so foreign aid is not just a matter of sending out a food parcel to somebody. These are people who are living under some of the worst conditions imaginable by an organization that lives on basically to create the biggest shock value possible. Well, so Syria and the Islamic State are, they're related issues, but they are also separate. But in this case here, this seems to me to be something that is worth fighting against. So, we can say Canada has no role in it, and, we can either say, our military isn't strong enough, or, or whatever. You may raise a practical argument, but that's not what our candidates are currently doing. Our candidates are usually working around some fairly strange rhetoric. And again, there's other issues going on. I haven't really gone into any of the meat of the issues of that, because that just kind of enmeshes me into some really complicated and probably not well suited for the little period of time I'm going to be streaming still. But I don't know. It's like it seems to me the reasons for going that have been presented from the Conservatives are stupid ones, and the reasons for not engaging from the Liberals and the NDP are bad ones. So in this case, again, none of these are representative of my views. Likewise, electoral reform, don't necessarily like any of the options, even if any of these options, some of them have been very vague in terms of what they're offering. Again, there's not a lot for me to work with on there. So do I really want to say, well, of these three options, I dislike one of them strongly enough that I will not vote for them. So does this mean, with all of these really awful options ahead of me, I'm going to have to hitch my wagon to one of them? Or do I just say, it's like, give me a better set of candidates, otherwise I'm not voting? Anyways. Not voting because no party has a perfect I'm not asking for perfection. I'm asking for something representative, and it's not just foreign policy, right? I use that as an illustration, because remember, I did say foreign policy. I did also say electoral reform. There are also, domestic issues such as our policies regarding the census that are at stake. There's a lot of different things that are going in there, and this is a case of, effectively, if you're saying that it is my obligation to vote, then what this is saying is that I need to specifically vote against my interests, and interests that I I have to endorse somebody who would take the country in a direction that I do not agree with and do not want to see it go in. Much too strong, you can say, or Western infrastructure created this. Okay, fine. I mean, it's fine to say I'm ivory tower about this, but I mean, again, I am going to, you know, in the end, it's my vote. The right to, you know, the right to vote is also the right to abstain, right? So by necessity, I mean, the political system is designed such as... By the way, I should get... Wilman, thank you very much for following. This is probably a very unique conversation. I don't think I've ever really jumped into politics in terms of the stream before, so I'm glad you followed anyway, despite the unusual material. But yeah, like the big thing is that Much Too Strong is also following. I'm glad you endorsed the stream despite my political or lack of political beliefs. How do conservative governments run larger deficits than... Oh, hang on. All right, I got a bunch of... Sorry, I got to catch up a bunch with chat, so... Captain Bear 2, I missed you in the crossfire. Hello, we're not actually going to be streaming that much longer, but it's great to see you again, so... So there we go. Western invention created this situation in the first place. Fader 5 says, not a big fan of neoconservative, but it certainly does run on principles, which was, you know, sort of the problem with it. We should stop messing around in the Middle East and let regional powers sort it out. Much Too Strong. That's extremely problematic if you consider the fact that one of the regional powers is Saudi Arabia. But yeah, it's doublespeak freighter, principled words followed with polar actions. Okay, fair enough. Not sure you agree with that, though. How do conservative governments run larger deficits than liberals? Well, Much Too Strong. I mean, the argument that the conservatives would presently give is that part of their tenure did come after the global financial crisis. I don't believe that is an acceptable response, but it is also worth mentioning that at least one of the current opposition parties, in this case the Liberals, are campaigning on running deficits for at least another 5 years, or I think 4 or 5 years, something like that. Now, in this case, there can be actually very good economic reasons for running those deficits. And in this case, I don't agree with the deficits that the conservative government has run. But just keep in mind that it's a cute point of rhetoric, but there would actually be policy people who could justify the conservative behavior to you. I don't think they would justify it well, because I don't think it's correct. But I also think you've maybe not done them. I don't think if you're going, I think if somebody's going to criticize somebody on an economic policy like that, it should be a full-throated argument, not just, you know, well, they gave a bigger deficit than the Trudeau years or something like that. And I can, yeah, I said to her, okay, so I mean, Much Too Strong. I'm not going to give a specific point-by-point list of the pros and cons of every party. That would take a lot longer than I'm willing to spend on this. And I conflated electoral reform with proportional representation. Well, that is also consistent with what some of these parties are presenting on it. I mean, by all means, if you want to tell me what one of the parties is suggesting otherwise, go ahead. But it seems to me that most of the policies that have been advocated from these parties, if they've advocated it at all, have been PR ones. And again, I'm perfectly happy with keeping first past the post the way that it is, right? So even if you want to say you prefer single transferable vote, you could say any other form, and I'll still say there are other issues that Canada should be working on. It seems to me every single time people are talking about electoral reform, it's because the party that they didn't like got in. And that's not, to me, that's not a sufficient reason to change an electoral system. Yes, thank you, Freighter5. I agree as well. There isn't an obligation or a duty to vote. Like I said, it's the same rights that give me the freedom to vote are also the same ones that give me the freedom to abstain. An economist, poli-sci major, an economist walking to a stream. It's fun and nice to listen to. And nice to see a CK2 stream. Yeah, well, I mean, the one drawback here, of course, is I do spend a lot of time talking. So, I mean, we did start in 769, but we haven't gotten too far so far. Saying in general, forget the recent present difference from saying cutting corporate taxes, subsidizing the war machine in the trillions is not fiscally conservative. Is it really the trillions, though, that we've subsidized the war machine? And do we have a war machine? Be it Canada or the USA. Well, I mean, these are two different entities, right? There are very big differences between Canada and the USA, as we will find out when the TPP negotiations have completed. But no, see, first past the post isn't the worst method ever. Like, you can say that, but, convince me with evidence. Don't just say it's a bad system and move on from that. There's simply different priorities behind the difference. You can say that first past the post is unfair, but I don't actually think that fairness is the first obligation of an electoral system. Like, the biggest one that I would say is, if we're electing representatives, if we're electing people who are supposed to be representing our interests in Parliament, making the best decisions for the country and not necessarily the most popular ones, then fairness isn't the first priority of a system. It's whether or not the best representatives get elected. And I think the one thing that isn't appreciated by first past the post is that people aren't idiots. People do know how the system works, and they will not, you can see all the efforts that people are making in terms of something like strategic voting. Like, people are going to behave in a way to make sure that they get what they want, right? Electoral representatives, as much as people like to characterize first past the post as just, one party gets in and they do whatever they want as a majority, it doesn't usually turn out that way. You can have a two-party system first past the post, like you have in BC, and you really do have situations where you have, the Liberals will run rampant over the province for X number of years, and then the NDP will do the same. But people know in 4 or 5 years they're going to have to be accountable to the electorate. So it's not just that they do every last policy decision that they want and run through. You would see the country run in a very different way if that was the case. If NDP and Libs joined, you'd never see a right or center party again. Well, I mean, the NDP and the Liberals aren't really, like, even if you take a look at any of these divisions, and how they normally give economic liberal or I guess they say usually socialist, or more liberal or conservative beliefs. Like, the way it's split right now, you have the Conservative Party fairly in the bottom right of that grid, and you have the NDP and the Liberals in the top left-hand corner. There's no centrist party. Like, when I do those surveys, I usually wind up either smack dab in the middle or just slightly to the upper left. But that's not the current political landscape that we have in Canada. In Canada, we have two pretty left parties and one really right party. I really don't like how it's turned out, but these are my options, so... I still haven't figured out who I'm marrying. So the thing I was mainly looking for was one of these, big dynasties, but I don't think there's either nobody available or... Yeah, we got nothing. Okay, I'm just going to find somebody in my bloodline and marry them off. So he's 16. What have I got? 11-year-old, 12-year-old. Okay, I'll try one. Yeah, not working. So you're going to marry that lustful 12-year-old. So I'm going to encourage both of you to go onto the CBC podcast. There's actually a debate that they had about electoral reform. And I guess I need to fight a war before I say any more. So yeah, I mean, you're not really... I was going to say, there's not a whole lot that I haven't heard before in terms of these arguments as far as balance and all of that is concerned. I would actually encourage you guys to listen to that CBC debate and see... I guess I should decide whether or not I free prisoners. There's no good options. I guess the biggest thing I'll say is that once you compare the two positions that are given by the people who are in the debate, and I think the thing that interested me the most about it is that once somebody got past the fairness thing, you could it's actually really hard to see what their, I guess, what's the best term for this? Like what the core interest or where the demonstration of it being a better system is. You may have a different opinion of it when you listen to it. I hope this isn't divided by... Oh, God. I think we just need to get her out of the house at this point. Anyway, I would encourage you to listen to it and decide whether or not you feel that there is a... Whether or not, basically, which side of that debate you feel actually winds up making the better points in terms of a system which is supposed to elect a government and one that's supposed to give us, effective leadership and whatnot. I'm going to lose this. Oh, maybe not. All right, well, we lost a war somewhere. Oh, Jesus. I didn't even know there were guys up here. Yeah, so, okay, so freighter fight, that's actually a position I can maybe get a little bit more behind, which would be, this is my preference in terms of, electoral systems. Because, I mean, in the end, obviously I have my opinions in terms about whether or not I'm going to vote this election. Oh, God. So I think I just lost a wife, and it looks like my target has just run for his life. So we got to cancel that. Nope, I still have a wife, so that's good. So I guess we go on to the next family member whose title I want to steal. Pepin the El Ruler works for me. Yeah, so I mean, in the end, if it comes down to an opinion, this is my, my preference. That's okay. I honestly, as much as so beyond the immediate benefit that people give. So I mean, obviously everybody wants, and it's a little bit like income inequality, right? It's weird for people to say it's like, no. I think everybody, we should just let it all run free. Everybody should have max. There should be no social mobility. There should be nothing. Like, we don't live in rapture. Whether or not people agree with the policies that get recommended to address income inequality is another question. No, it's this. It's, oh my God, it's my heir. suddenly this playthrough got a lot harder. Yeah, so I mean, obviously there are it would be nice to have sorts of things. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty. I mean, I would hope for a benign dictatorship because that's the way I play Crusader Kings 2, minus the benign part. So in that case, when it comes down to it, it's like it'd be nice to have. I don't really have a whole lot to offer to that. But yeah, so far as argument, I mean, honestly, I've not heard an argument for electoral reform that I found very compelling. That could just be me, but it's I think, I mean, especially because it's something different, right? If people don't, if people aren't liking the way the elections are turning out, I mean, I hear every argument from it's like people will vote more if there's STV or proportional representation or any one of these other alternatives. People have never given me data behind that. I don't see, unless there is actually something that has specifically said, here is the causal, here's the mechanism through which this change to the electoral system has resulted in more people voting, and this is the only, this is the specific reason why. I don't think people can make that claim. It'd be nice, but it needs a little. I mean, we are talking about the way that we choose the representatives in the House of Commons. I need a little bit more than well-wishing for for an argument like that. But maybe that just makes me inherently conservative. I mean, I'm not one of the people who thinks that conservatism is inherently a bad word. But I mean, obviously manifestate. So I mean, I don't think a lot of people can really justify voting Republican out of the last couple of times. And obviously the Conservative Party of Canada is latching itself to a number of policies that I think maybe the traditional term being the small c conservative would have a bit of difficulty with. I know Joe Clark seems to be pretty critical of the current batch. So obviously when I say the term conservatism, I'm talking a little bit more in the broader term. So I mean, just because somebody has a different political opinion from me doesn't necessarily mean that they're automatically wrong, although I'll treat them like it. A-Knight has played Stronghold Crusader 2. This looks a lot more like Civilization 4. I think A-Knight, this is actually... You'll never return to tell you to murder 16-year-olds for kicks. Yeah, we won't be going too much longer. I mean, I pretty much guaranteed my viewership by walking into the weeds. So A-Knight 97, that's not actually a bad description. I'll just take a minute here. We will keep our information to myself. Actually, what I think the best thing to do, I'm basically done for tonight. I'm actually already over time. But what I think I'm going to do for you, A-Knight, just so I can give you a fair apples-to-apples comparison, especially if you don't own this game, Steam is holding the Paradox Developer Weekend, so if this is something that you're interested in, it's not a bad time to get into it. So your comparison for Civilization 5 is not a bad one, or Civilization 4, rather. Any Civilization game. I will definitely say it's quite a bit more complicated. So the first comparison that I make between a game like Crusader Kings 2 or Europa Universalis or any of these grand strategy titles is Civilization will be sort of the celebration of the achievements of mankind, right? So in this case, the civilizations are relatively balanced. I mean, obviously there are different units that they'll get at different points in the game. So, the Americans will be a bit stronger later on. The Egyptians will be a little bit stronger earlier on in the game. But generally, you're looking at a game that's fairly balanced across it, right? Unlike history, the Egyptians do have the possibility of surviving into the 21st century. Crusader Kings 2 doesn't bother doing that. The first playthrough I ever did, I played the Count of Westmoreland right here. I did not have a big, large empire like the Holy Roman Empire here. I had to build everything that I had from that. You can actually also play this game as a small county and not go any bigger. It's perfectly enjoyable that way. It's a little bit more sandboxy like that. Now, where the comparisons with Civilization end would be that this game is a lot more about the individual experience of running a kingdom. So This game very much personifies heavy is the head that wears the crown. Probably the best way for me to give the example here is I'm currently trying to institute high crown authority. So much like it sounds, I am trying to gain more power for myself at the expense of my subjects. And the realm needs to vote on this. I have 449 possible votes. You need basically a simple majority. So in this case, I'm looking for 225 votes. And it'll give you a bit of a breakdown in terms of who's on side with all this. I actually need to change who I'm buttering up. So let me just take a quick look here. I think 7 was the highest I was seeing on this list. So that's either Ominous. Looks like he's the only 7. So in this case, we'll do a search. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking for this individual who's currently opposing the policy that I want to adopt. He is in the Duchy of Aquitaine. There he is. And what we do here is I take one of my counselors and I'm going to send him on a diplomatic mission to change his opinion. So right now he has a fairly positive opinion of me anyway. He's at 21. But we can use my chancellor to basically improve his opinion of me. And basically over time, hopefully with that opinion getting high enough, that's going to give us some extra votes towards this initiative. So unlike Civilization, where you can say, I want to turn the United States into a police state overnight, because this is a game about the broader sweep of history and sort of the accomplishments of the species, you have you actually have the political realities. You have the fact that people don't necessarily want to do things the way that you say them. Kill his family until he agrees to help you out of fear. Finding body murder always is the answer in this game. So the one thing I will say is that this game is much more complicated than Civilization, but not unmanageably so. I think this game does a very good job of sort of conveying information to you visually. So this is the default map view, a very nice map of Europe, slightly modified from the original game with a mod, but this isn't too unfair of a representation of what the game looks like out of the box. To me, the most important view is the realm view because it shows you the political divisions of Europe. So for instance, for some reason we lost this territory at some point. At some point I will reclaim it. But you can divide it other ways. I can see what my diplomatic relations are. Maybe I want to see how culture is divided. Maybe interesting to see the de jure duchies. So in this case, this would be the legal arrangements rather than the de facto duchies, which are the possessions actually held by those dukes. You can even see de jure empires. So in this case, the Holy Roman Empire obviously takes it. We're currently incorporating a large part of Germania. The Byzantine Empire is obviously de jure much larger than it is de facto. And that's partially our doing. So in this case here, depending on what you will want to accomplish in the game, you may want to use one of these different views. In terms of what you can do personally, I mean, these are your individual stats, these are your holdings. There's a lot of information just on your personal portrait alone. And then that's ignoring your council, which will be able to do individual actions for you. This is incidentally why it's easier to be something like the Count of Westmoreland, because you only have one county to worry about rather than the Holy Roman Empire, which has, I believe, larger than it ever was historically. So, in that sense, I mean, I find the game very rewarding to play because of its complexity, but I will definitely say it is not friendly to newcomers. I think the tutorials are very thin. I think it's a little bit better to learn this game by either watching it being played or asking questions. I mean, I'm going to be finishing up for the evening, so I'm sorry you don't get a chance to ask a few more. But if you ever want to come back, if you're interested enough to start playing and you want to know how the game works, I do this every Friday, and you are more than welcome to come in and ask even the most basic questions, because I think I get a lot out of playing this game, and it would be nice to be able to share it with people to a point where they feel like they are able to where they're able to get that same enjoyment themselves. It's not for everybody. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that. But I think, I definitely think that this game should appeal to more people than it does currently. And I think that's just purely a function of the fact that Paradox I don't think they gave quite enough attention to the tutorials. So, Just trying to think if there's anything else I can say. The other major difference is, even though I'm kind of playing it turn-based, this is actually a real-time game with just the option to pause whenever you want. I don't pause it constantly like this when I do it in multiplayer. I usually just put it to a very slow speed. But you do have the option. Like, one of the biggest things that you can say about this game, it's okay to just sit back and not do anything. Waiting is a virtue in this game. And then second, if you... looks like they're going for a fight. You know, I hate... Oh, never mind. So, you know, just waiting to gain money, waiting to... I mean, do a lot of things will be enough. I have no idea why I suddenly started losing troops. I'm going to wait until we finish this siege, but this is going to be really costly. Okay. That's good news. I think at this point I combine the forces and I go directly for their stack. It'd be nice to siege out more territory, but I think I really need to keep their armies on the back foot. Of course, we're losing troops. I really don't want this to happen, but let's finish the siege and then we can clean it up after the fact. Alright, so again, this is 15,000 versus 5. We're probably going to lose this holding, but we'll have the advantage of taking out a fairly substantial number of their troops. This is also especially concerning because of the factions. Speaking of which. Oh, well, actually they're going to make their move anytime now. Hey, Astral Seer. How's it going tonight? Sorry, I kind of just suddenly went into low commentary mode. I'm just trying to get to a proper spot to wrap this up, and I feel like I'm chasing around units. There we go. So the reason I'm doing this is you do get more war score for engaging the enemy on battle. And the other big advantage is I do have a very substantial advantage as far as the size of the armies are concerned. So in this case, yeah, I guess I have to accept the Scots. So as you can see here, our war score jumped up to 92. So in this case, I think we'll try... I think I'm going to be a little greedy and try and hit them here. So of course, also it takes out one of their bigger stacks, so that'll also sort of put the hurt on their ability to do a counterattack. Does mean I'm going to lose some troops to attrition, but basically all I need to do now is either wait for the ticking war score to get me to the place I need to go, or I just lay siege to one of the holdings. So in this case, I'll go for the siege just because it does actually get me a little bit of gold, but. We'll see how far we can get with it. So as you can see here, they're trying to raise up the troops that they have, basically because their existing forces aren't really sufficient to deal with me. So that also gives me a little bit of a lease on life as far as these sieges are concerned. Just because in the end, they're going to be taking a bunch of time getting their forces together. So it gives me enough time to do terrible things to their holdings. As you can see here, right, they've got 1,400 troops, but they're all at lower morale because they just got together. Doing well. You've been very busy since your work, but since your work is very rewarding, it's been nice. Good way of being tired. Astroseer, I forget what you do for work again. How have I been? I've been doing okay. I've missed a couple of streams because of school, but that's just the way it works. I actually have a very big midterm on Monday, and it's unfortunately full of, constrained optimization and optimal control, and the prof who does it is like a superstar at MIT, so I'm gonna have to work for my grades. It's one of those kinds of midterms, so I'm actually going to be wrapping up the stream quite soon. I'm about half an hour later than what I was planning to be. But similar to you, right? Like the big thing about my studies right now is that now that it's more advanced material, I just simply find it much more interesting. Ooh, that's not what I want to do. So yeah, because it's more challenging material, because I sort of feel like it's about stuff. Yeah, gotta say absurd request. Yeah, so basically the material is kind of what you would expect proper study of economics to be. And so, it's rewarding at the same time. You find out why economics has this reputation for being very difficult to do well. So I guess, the cool thing is, if you do empirical work, it's probably the best set of tools that you have for causal inference. We were talking about political science a little while ago. I read a bunch of political science journals just because there's room for improvement. You can go in there and you can apply some of the best practices from econ research and usually wind up with some really impressive improvements or maybe some unexpected results or something like that. So that's one nice part of it. But all of it it's hard-won material, right? You need to know your math. You need to understand why regression works, and specifically, why rejecting a null hypothesis doesn't necessarily mean that you're saying, okay, this is actually the case. You may actually just be saying, okay, well, we know it's not doing this. And, that negative doesn't necessarily mean, all that you may be offering is one possible interpretation of many. So, all this stuff is difficult to do, and it can be, frustrating because, sometimes you just want to have a cool result. But on the other hand, clearly, I took the extra time on stream to talk about why I find it worthwhile. So, sure, Ganjo FR. Welcome to the stream, by the way. And that's really cool. You do lectures and workshops on autism for schools, companies, and coach people on autism one-on-one. That's excellent work. That's definitely much more valuable than what I'm doing. So yeah, sorry about that, Ganjo FR. We're just kind of wrapping up for tonight, so I'm talking about it. But we, just for interest, we are running all of the DLC except Sunset Invasion and Charlemagne. We have Charlemagne. We're running all the DLC except for Sunset Invasion and Horse Lords. Horse Lords was donated to the stream, the cash for it was donated to the stream by CPO Williams, but we did start this playthrough before Horse Lords was released, and so I didn't want to corrupt the Iron Man file for this. So we began as Charlemagne in 769, and we have been kind of continuing since then. Obviously, I've got some Demen problems now, as well as factions that are about to eat me alive, and just generally my massive mismanagement of the realm while I'm busy rambling on and arguing with people inside of the stream. But we did come about this properly. So somebody was asking about mods. We're not running any mods in this game except for a couple of visual enhancements, just to have a transparent map and then a couple of border changes. But basically, this is the latest patch, as we see. Horse Lord screwed up your Iron Man game. We're so sad. Yeah, that's exactly why I haven't run it. I mean, I'm so happy that CPO Williams donated for that. I'm really grateful to him. But clearly I don't want to undo all of the good work for that donation. So obviously I'm going to be playing Horse Lord's next playthrough. So Ganjo Afar, we're actually going to be wrapping. I'll start my little outro. I'll start distributing some titles while I do this. But Ganjo Afar, if there was anything else you wanted to see about this playthrough, or if you had any questions while I wrap up, feel free to let me know. I'll give an outro. As always, guys, thank you very much for hanging out tonight. It's different stream as far as content is concerned. I know we had a big digression on politics. So thank you for those of you who were patient. I know it's a topic on which people can disagree, and often disagree on unfriendly terms. I try not to be one of those individuals myself, though of course I leave it to the people I was engaging with to decide whether or not I succeeded in that regard or not. But I also think, I think this stuff matters. I think it's worth talking about. I don't like it when people say don't talk about politics or religion, because, if this stuff matters, then it should be discussed. And if somebody is, in the end, if I'm wrong, I would much rather be convinced as to my wrongness. But with that in mind, I also know it's not necessarily and I didn't necessarily, when I have a game going on in the background, I'm not necessarily going to be able to give the best support of my views or lack of views, as the case may be. So that may have been a very tedious discussion for some people to listen to as well, and I apologize for that. I'll try not to make it too much of a feature, but I will. I'll also not shy away from it if it's a topic that people want to discuss. As far as this individual game is concerned, the obvious problems aside, we are currently looking to get the remaining, 150 votes or so for the High Crown Authority. That will give us primogeniture, assuming that we live long enough to institute it. We became king or emperor in 892, so we're looking for basically 902. That will make me 61 years old. That's a very optimistic assumption that I'm going to be alive at that time. But honestly, just getting the High Crown Authority will at least lay the foundations for my my successor, I suppose. As far as this most recent conflict, we did that so basically just so we could expand the realm. An opportunity came up. I'm going to need to give away the titles. I've got too many duchies right now. Oh, hang on. Actually, that doesn't make any sense. I should have got... Unless... Oh, I can create the Duchy of Castile, that's why. So maybe I'll make the duchy just so I can give it away. But in this case, we just did a quick little war because we had the space for it. The eventual plan will be to kind of take these kingdoms back and put them under my my sole dominion. But these are all things for the future. Don't talk about sex finding, Bonnie? Well, yeah. That wasn't random. It's a worthwhile topic, but I have nothing original to add to the conversation. All right, guys. Like I said, I am running a little bit over, and I also think I kind of ran out of steam in terms of things that I had to say about this game. So, Genjo Afar, I hope you got what you needed from seeing the map. As always, if you have any questions in terms of the playthrough, feel free to send me a message. You can stop by next week. We play this every Friday. We had an unexpected number of follows today. I think we have 3 new people added to the stream, minus anybody who unfollowed. And, yeah, I don't know. It was fun. I always like streaming this for you guys. And as always, you're a very forgiving audience and very encouraging one. So we were hosted by Skunk Odor, a fellow Team Panda member. So with that in mind, let's pass on the love. I'm just going to take a minute to take a look at my following list and see if we can give everybody along. Yeah, not a problem, Ganjo FR. And thanks for stopping by the stream. I know it was very brief, so probably didn't leave any any kind of an impression for you, but it's always nice to see new faces inside the stream. So, and yeah, Still Straight, I'm sorry I didn't have more for you on here, but I've already talked a couple of times about this midterm, and I really need to stop putting it off. There's a lot that I need to do on it. So I'm just going to take a minute here. I do want to make sure that you guys are left with somebody who is worth hanging out with. So let me see. Let me see what we've got online. Oh, Ewok Fuzzy Nuts is streaming. So Ewok Fuzzy Nuts is... Yeah, not a problem, Astral Seer. I will, I'll do my best. Yeah, Finding Bonnie. I'd unfollow this stream. All right, Ewok Fuzzy Nuts is a fellow Team Panda member. He's playing Destiny right now, so if you guys are here for Crusader Kings 2 or those types of strategy games, this probably won't be quite up your alley. I do recommend that you hang around for a little bit. It definitely helps me out in terms of supporting my fellow Team Panda members. I don't necessarily, like, there's not a quota that I need to meet or something like that, but these are people who have been very supportive of my own stream, and I definitely feel like it's good to get in touch with them, especially too because these are actually people who I enjoy watching on my own time. I try not to follow people just for the sake of, you know, making the social connection or something like that. Generally, I follow the channels that I want to watch myself. So even if Destiny isn't your cup of tea, he's actually got a very good personality, somebody who's done quite a bit to promote my channel to his own viewers. And I actually originally saw him play Minecraft, so he's actually quite diverse in terms of the kinds of games that he streams. So I think even if Destiny isn't your thing, usually, in my opinion, Ewok has the personality that that shines through a game, which maybe isn't quite my sort of a thing. So as we normally do, we will do a technical raid, although, you know, I know the Crusader Kings crowd is not normally the type that likes to do formal raids, so I will leave his link in the chat. I will also host him. And if you guys could come along and paste the message that you see into his chat window, I would much appreciate it. If you don't do it, though, that's fine. And I know some people prefer lurking and that, but it does, you know, it's nice to give a strong raid, and especially because we're taking advantage of hosts from others as well. It certainly benefits us to pass that along. So let me just take a second here to put him in chat for you, and we'll send him along. All right, so, and to all the new faces, or ones who are still hanging out, I'm System Chalk. Mondays and Fridays. Friday night will all be Crusader Kings 2. Monday's currently dedicated to Shadowrun Hong Kong. If you check the VODs, you'll also see that occasionally I do some reading on it. So in this case, we have been reading Ernst Gombrich's The Little History of the World. If you haven't followed already and you enjoyed what you see, do feel free to hit follow. It, of course, costs you nothing and will inform you when the stream comes online, but generally you can expect me to be here on Mondays and Fridays. If it wasn't quite your thing, thanks for hanging out anyway. But with that in mind, I will leave you into the good hands of Ewok Fuzzy Nuts, and I'll hang out for a little bit before going on to do my scholarly duties.